Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. This channel is an educational channel dedicated toward uncovering some hidden gems in the worldwide curriculum, things that are out there that you probably haven't heard of that could make a positive benefit in your life, and especially in terms of cosmology, all-encompassing theories and theories of everything that you may not have heard of, that you can plug into your mind and help you to organize your mind so that all of the various and disparate different factoids that you have in your head can find a common ground and make your whole way of life more coherent. Okay, now today is video number 342 that we've done on Dewey B. Larson and his reciprocal system of theory. The reciprocal system of theory was derived in the 20th century and is, a theory of everything. It's a system of theory, meaning that if you understand how it works, you can plug it into any subject that you'd like. Now, Mr. Larson plugged it into subjects such as chemistry and astronomy, astrophysics and physics, atomic physics, and also economics. And he dabbled a little bit into the metaphysical, psychic powers, and dream interpretation, philosophy, religion, psychology, biology. Not too deep on those liberal arts topics, but at least some inroads. And then some of his followers have applied it to other things as well, such as archaeoastronomy, crypto ancient history, and so on and so forth. A lot of that work was done by Dr. Bruce Peret, who is one of his preeminent followers, who also recently passed away. Larson passed away in 1990. I believe Peret passed away in about 2020. And we're going to be looking at one of his papers today that's called Fundamental Postulates, 102, RS2-102, Fundamental Postulates. And RS2 is the reciprocal system 2. So this is the re-evaluation of the reciprocal system that was done by Dr. Peret and also Dr. KVK Nehru, who took Larson's work and revised it ever so slightly to make big improvements in the reciprocal system without sacrificing the intent and the spirit of the reciprocal system. In my opinion, anyway. Some people, some of the orthodoxy thinks that they went too far and that Larson got everything right. But Larson actually claimed that he wasn't getting everything right, that he was subject to error. His theory, he felt, was correct, but whether he applied the theory correctly in all situations, he doubted. And he felt that if he made any mistakes, they would kind of come out in the wash and become apparent, and that they should be corrected when that happened. So, now, the basic idea behind the reciprocal system is that we live in a universe that is made entirely of motion, not matter or energy or force or anything else. In fact, matter, energy, and force are just merely three different varieties of motion. In Larson's definition of motion, he makes it rather more broad than kind of the scientific definition of motion as something like akin to velocity. In Larson's formulation, motion is the relationship between space and time. And we can't see that in speed or velocity, that speed is space over time. The car is moving 20 miles per hour. 20 miles of space in 1 hour of time. And all of those other motions are also different relationships between space and time, with time or space as the numerator, space or time as the denominator, with the caveats that both space and time, they have the same general qualities because they are reciprocals of each other in motion. Space and time do not exist separately. They only exist together in motion as reciprocal entities, and meaning like top and bottom of fractions. And they both have identical qualities, such as coordinateness. Both time and space come in 3 dimensions. I would also say 3 or 4 dimensions, but either way, X, Y, Z coordinates. We are accustomed to thinking of space as having X, Y, Z coordinates, not so much with time. Larson refers to that as coordinate space and coordinate time. Then there's also clock space and clock time. Clock time we're accustomed to. The clock is always getting later and later and later and later. And it is not moving in any specific direction. It's just getting later. We're not accustomed to thinking that way in terms of space, but the general idea is that space is getting farther and farther and farther apart. And it's moving in no specific direction. We can find a visual for that by using a balloon with dots on it. If you blow up the balloon, all of the dots are moving away from each other. But they are not moving in any specific direction. In fact, you don't get a direction until you assign a reference point, till you determine that arbitrarily that one of these points is motionless. Then when you've done that, then you can assign direction to the other points. But before that, all of the points, and not only just the points, but the spaces between the points, are moving away from each other. This was, you can also expand this to another dimension if you decide to use something like raisin bread or some other analogous like that, where as you put it in the oven and it rises, all of the raisins are moving away from each other. And this was also observed, that all of the distant galaxies are moving away from each other. And unless we go back to pre-Copernican days and decide that our galaxy is at the center and it's motionless, then we also have to contend that our galaxy is also participating in the same motion. That is a scalar motion, what Larson refers to as scalar motion, motion with a magnitude but no particular direction. That is the expansion of space, or clock space. Space and time also only come in discrete units. There is a minimum unit of space and a minimum unit of time. And if you don't have that full minimum unit, you don't have anything. And if you have exactly 1 unit of space in 1 unit of time, remembering that space over time is speed, 1 unit of space over 1 unit of time is the speed of light. That is what Larson calls unit speed. 1 over 1 equals 1. And unit speed is the background of this universe of motion. It's what Larson calls the progression of the natural reference system. The universe is moving outward at the speed of light in all directions, a scalar motion outward. Half of the universe is actually moving faster than this progression, and half is moving slower. Larson refers to that as the cosmic sector and the material sector, respectively. And you can see from Einstein's idea that the speed of light is the maximum speed of the universe, that Einstein is only taking into account half of Larson's universe when he says that. Only the material sector and the cosmic sector remains a mystery. Now, it doesn't have to remain a mystery because of the reciprocal postulate. If you understand the material sector, you can extrapolate over to the cosmic sector simply by inverting the roles of space and time. So, for example, if we have in the material sector, we have coordinate space, 3 dimensions of space, and clock time, always getting later and later and later. Well, if we cross that boundary, that unit speed boundary, into the other sector, into the cosmic sector, then we now have coordinate time, 3 dimensions of time, and clock space. Space is always getting farther and farther and farther apart. Okay, now those are the basic aspects of the reciprocal system. It's obviously a lot more than that, but just to give you a general idea. Now, Larson basically put those ideas into his 2 fundamental postulates that he arrived at about 1959. Even though it was more than 25, 30 years before that he first had his inklings of this system. It took him, without, quitting his day job, it took him, 25, 30 years to work out the 2 fundamental postulates. And Dr. Peret has a bit of a dispute over the second postulate, but he's going to kind of explain his view of the 2 fundamental postulates here in this paper. Now, Larson used the fundamental postulates to eventually arrive at a theoretical universe. Okay, this is Larson's using his fundamental postulates. If these are true, then this is what the universe looks like. And he arrived at that through a process of deduction. But I did about 15 videos earlier, about 10 months ago or so, that go through his process of that. It's called the outline of the deduction of the reciprocal system. So if you want to take a look at the 165 steps that Larson took to arrive at his theoretical universe, that's where you would want to go. And then Larson wrote his books based on kind of his theoretical universe and kind of how it compared with the legacy science universe. And we've gone through a couple of those books, and we'll go through a couple more eventually. But let's just start up here with Peret's interpretation of these fundamental postulates. He first starts with a quote from Larson. "They have not resulted from a search for the absolute truth, whatever that may be, but from an effort to establish a working basis by which the ordinary phenomena of everyday life could be explained qualitatively and quantitatively." Okay, and the first section then is called Larson's Artificial Reality. Over the course of the development of the reciprocal system, Dewey Larson has updated his fundamental postulates a number of times. Prior to the 1959 publication of The Structure of the Physical Universe, his working postulates were, quote, the physical universe is composed entirely of a single entity, space-time, existing in 3 dimensions, in discrete units, and in 2 reciprocal forms, space and time. And then the second postulate is space-time conforms to the relations of ordinary mathematics. Its magnitudes are absolute, and its geometry is Euclidean. Okay, then Peret goes on. Larson also included some laws, in quotes, to clarify the postulates. Every physical event is accompanied by a reciprocal event equal in magnitude and opposite in space-time direction. He calls that the general law of reaction. And I guess that is somewhat similar to Newton's laws, or one of Newton's laws. First one, I think. And then the second one, the total amount of space-time displacement cannot be altered by any process within the physical universe. And he calls that the general law of conservation. And then, where a physical event may have more than one possible result, the proportionate number of each alternative resulting from a number of events of this kind is equal to the mathematical probability. He calls that the general probability law. After consideration, Larson dropped the third postulate as unnecessary. And I guess those laws were that, I guess that was the third postulate. Okay. In the early stages of this investigation, the scalar nature of space-time was embodied in an additional postulate. Oh, no, this is a quote from Larson, so this is what he's doing with the third postulate. Further study indicated that it was a necessary consequence of the previous assumptions, as indicated in the preceding paragraph, and it was therefore eliminated from the list of postulates. He also dropped the general laws as being a natural consequence of the fundamental postulates. Okay, this section is called Creating the Theory. The first version of the fundamental postulates was in the 1959 publication, The Structure of the Physical Universe. Most notable is the absence of the concept of motion. Larson started with the concept of space-time, which was nothing more than a ratio of two scalars, a magnitude of space inversely related to a magnitude of time. In later works, he changed space-time to motion, which was the same concept, a ratio of absolute scalar magnitudes. Now again, scalar is something that has a magnitude but has no specific direction. Okay, so now he's saying 1959 fundamental postulates from the structure of the physical universe. The physical universe is composed entirely of one component, space-time, existing in 3 dimensions, in discrete units, and in 2 reciprocal forms, space and time. Second postulate, the physical universe conforms to the relations of ordinary mathematics. Its magnitudes are absolute, and its geometry is Euclidean. Okay, so this section is called Commuting the Theory. In the 1965 publication, New Light on Space and Time, Larson altered the second postulate to include commutative mathematics, adding the commutative adjective to mathematics to counter the non-commutative mathematics becoming popular with relativity theory of the time. So in the 1965 postulates is that the first postulate is the same, and the second postulate is the physical universe conforms to the relations of ordinary commutative mathematics. Its magnitudes are absolute and its geometry is Euclidean. It should be noted that the commutative aspect is a commandment on the artificial reality, not an observation of space-time. And if you were listening in the 3 previous videos to today, we went through Peret-RS2 paper, Peret-RS2-101, where he discussed kind of the difference between a commandment and an observation. And he was saying that a natural law is an observation about how nature behaves. A commandment is an artificial reality that is saying that you make it behave the way you want it to behave. And he determined that Larson's first postulate was a natural law, an observation, whereas the second postulate was a commandment or an artificial reality. Okay, now this section is called Moving to Motion. In 1979, Larson revised the fundamental postulates yet again, moving away from the idea of space-time and substituting the concept of motion, because space-time had the term space-time had too many hardcore connotations with conventional scientists. He also changed form, the word form, to aspect, to minimize the idea that space and time had form, when they were simply aspects of motion. He also qualified magnitude with primary in an attempt to clarify that there were two kinds of motion, one that operated independently as an absolute speed, the primary motion, and another that was the result of the interaction of primary motions, which is a secondary motion and was variable. So his 1979 fundamental postulates from the book Nothing But Motion, which was the first volume of his 3-volume work of the second edition of The Structure of the Physical Universe. Now the postulates read, the physical universe is composed of one component, motion, existing in 3 dimensions, in discrete units, and with 2 reciprocal aspects, space and time. Second postulate, the physical universe conforms to the relations of ordinary commutative mathematics. Its primary magnitudes are absolute, and its geometry is Euclidean. Okay, this section is called Extending Beyond Space and Time. After researching biology and ethics, Larson discovered that his fundamental postulates did not apply to the universe described by these topics. Life, in many ways, acted exactly opposite to the way inanimate structure should, and concepts such as self-sacrifice remained totally outside the scope of his universe of motion. To correct this, he began observations on the way biologic life and ethical behavior occurred in nature, and defined these observations in a set of 4 metaphysical postulates. Okay, and so this is from his book Beyond Space and Time, which actually came out posthumously, published by his wife in 1995. And we will, I believe, we're going to stop there and go on, work on this one tomorrow when we start over again. And we should be able to finish this article tomorrow. Okay, well, thanks for tuning in today, and tune in tomorrow to watch the second part of RS2-102, Fundamental Postulates. This is getting into like the nuts and bolts of Larson, and it's very instructive in, you know, kind of figuring out some of the variations in Larson's thinking and the evolution of the reciprocal system. All right, have a great day. Thanks for tuning in.